Welcome to our weekly wine night. Tonight we are talking about Dolcetto. First, let's all cheers.
Cheers.
Yay! I hope this is like a really welcome surprise for everyone, because I know last week when we were chatting, nobody had ever tried a Dolcetto. Last week, nobody had ever had a Verdejo. Everyone wound up liking the Verdejo, so I hope you guys end up liking the Dolcetto. Nicole had sent me a little message and asked, what temperature she should have it at. Should she put it in the refrigerator? I say yes. Dolcetto tastes really wonderful with a slight chill to it. So when I say slight chill, we're talking summertime. So if you're leaving a wine out on your countertop, and even if you have AC, you're probably keeping your AC around 75 max, at least we are. So you really want to bring it down to a temperature between 60 and 65 max. It really does much better at a chillier temperature. So like I mentioned last week when I sort of told you guys that this is what we were going to be tasting, Dolcetto, I think in people's minds, dolce in Italian means sweet. So Dolcetto, I think the way that the consumer thinks is that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to drink that wine. It's going to be sweet. But actually Dolcetto, the way that it translates in Italian, it means the sweet little one. Whenever you see in Italian etto on the ends, it means little. It's the same in Spanish when you see ito, it means little, and it's kind of like a cute little phrase or whatever terminology that you would say for something. It's not sweet, as you can tell if you guys are tasting your wine tonight, and it's definitely not a little wine. There's structure going on there. It is a dark skin grape. It's a thick skin grape. It has flavors that you're maybe getting of blackberry and plum, so cocoa. I always get violets out of Dolcetto. It's tannic, but it's not tannic like a cab in the sense that it's gonna strip your tongue. You're not going to be puckering. I feel like when I drink a Cabernet Sauvignon, I'm it's mouth coating. Whereas this is charming. It's low acid, it's fragrant, it's soft, and it's fruity. And there are tannins, but because of all that other things going on, it doesn't overpower your palate. Generally speaking, they are meant to be drank young, within a year or two, but I will get into some of the more seriousness of it. Some of the top vineyards of these wines, they can age up to 10 years. And with all that, they're difficult to sell because I'm going back and I'm talking about people think that they're sweet. And the other thing, when tourists, when they go to Piedmont, because this is primarily where the grape is grown, we've talked about Barbera. I did an extensive map and shared a lot of pictures from when Dave and I were in Piedmont. And the tourists, when they go to Piedmont, all they want to taste and buy is Nebbiolo. So it's kind of like the tourist that goes to Napa, all they want to taste is Cabernet Sauvignon. However, Napa, the wineries, they're doing all sorts of other awesome things. So this is why it's really difficult for Napa also to sell off grapes than Cabernet Sauvignon, if that makes sense. We can cut to the slides because we're gonna talk about Piedmont a bit because this is where this grape comes from, which we've talked about. So here we are, map of Italy. And if you recall, when I did Barbera, it's the farther northwest area here, the dark orange area, which is primarily when people think about Piedmont, what do they think about Barolo? They think about Barbaresco and maybe Barbera, and that's why I did a tasting on Barbera. But I wanted to highlight Dolcetto tonight, just because, again, like I said, I'm trying to structure things for summer wines. And if you scroll to the next, we're going to dial in a little bit further. So here we are. This is the very detailed map of Piemonte. I'm trying to point out where Dolcetto mostly comes from. So it is planted throughout the Langhe, mostly, which the Langhe is this blue, the major, all that blue is the Langhe. It's also grown in Asti, which is the center of the region here. The major town is Asti, so it's right there. There you go, right in the center. However, we do have some areas that are grown exclusively for Dolcetto, and that's pretty rad because it's one of these grapes that is considered like a side grape, if you will. Over that, which I will talk about, which is the most, if you look at where Genoa is, it's just north of that. So let's see what the next slide is real quick. So here we are. So we've talked about Piedmont. This is just a general photo of how breathtaking this region is. And it is like one of the regions most favored by Dave and I. And you can see why. I mean, it's just rolling hills backed up against these ice-capped mountains. And this is like, I can tell by the way the vineyards are, this is probably late October, maybe November. And when Dave and I were here, we were here like mid-October, and the mountains, they stay like this all the time. I mean, I can't speak for it year round, but they're pretty much what I've seen, they're snow-capped all year round because the elevation for Europe is rather high. I see we have a question. So you want to skip out of here? I can take a quick look. Yeah. Back up. So what I want to talk about, like with Piedmont, so like I was mentioning, the tourists, when they go there, they just have Nebbiolo, they have Barolo and Barbaresco on their mind, and maybe Barbera. Dolcetto is one of these few grapes that people don't like pay much attention to, but the Italians, especially in this region, pay very close attention to because it's really important for their economy. Because when you make Barolo or Barbaresco, it requires aging. And so what does that mean? Like after they harvest the grapes, it's like, well, we can't just like put the wine to market. We have to like, you know, age it and do all these, you know, things I won't go into. But with Dolcetto, they can sort of turn around and be, and it harvests rather easily. It can pretty much grow throughout the region, and it can be released to the market while people are waiting to have Barbera, or they're waiting to have Barolo or Barbaresco. So it can be drank like rather young, and some of them can be aged, and well, I'll get into that. So the best regions in Piedmont are really set aside for Nebbiolo because that obviously it brings more money and it requires more attention. They're not like grape. You cannot just plant Nebbiolo anywhere and expect it to do very well. It needs a specific exposure. It needs longer sunlight in order for it to ripen really well. Whereas Dolcetto, like you can sort of plant it like in these not so fancy areas. That's why you can plant it all over Piedmont and you're gonna have a happy little grape. It's easily ripening. They plant it in cooler sites that are facing in different areas, and you can show the slide, the next slide, which this was just outside of where we stayed. So this is one of the regions where they exclusively, or not exclusively, but one of the regions that they do grow Dolcetto, which is a DOC. It's Diano di Alba, and this literally, like, we woke up to this every morning. This is right outside our little B&B that we stayed at. And the town, if you look further up, there's like the castle. I mean, that's very typical in Piedmont and throughout the old world, I should say. It's always like, you know, a castle, and then the city sort of builds around it. And this was mid-October that we were here. Yep. You can see on this one area that they're replanting, you know, it looks like they're trying to rip up some vines. But you can also see like the difference. If you look really closely, if you dial in on that house that's sort of in the center, and if you look directly south of it, it's green. And if you look just, the vines are green, but if you look just over to the other side of the way that tiny little slope is facing, they're starting to change color. Like the leaves are starting to change like fall colors. They're starting to turn orange. And like that was just one of the most amazing things, that the way these plots are set up, it's like all these little like plots, like it's just all about sun exposure. And if you have, you know, your own garden, you sort of learn these little aspects of exposure and where to move your things and where to plant certain things, and understanding that, you know, you can have your own little microclimate going on in your own garden. You can go to the next slide. So this is just up the hill. I just think that's so picturesque. Like it looks like a postcard to me, almost like a painting. Again, like a site that we woke up to. And all these vineyards are Dolcetto vineyards. You can see the color variation happening on that one slope. You know, some are starting to turn orange and the others are still green. And again, this is the region of Diano di Alba, which is primarily planted to Dolcetto, and it's just because of the exposure where it's facing the sun and the soil types. So speaking of soils, Dolcetto thrives in sandy calcareous soil, whereas, you know, when we talked about Barbera likes a little bit more limestone, you know, definitely isn't, you know, it can handle some sandy soils. Nebbiolo isn't really the friendliest when it comes to sandy soils. A mix is fine. Clay is really what they like, but quick draining soils is something Dolcetto likes. So what that means is like, it's just an easy grape to grow. There are some, so any questions? I'm starting to ramble on and getting into my element here before I... No? What does everybody think about their wine so far? I know everyone's
I like it. I like it a lot. And I always like, that's why I asked you specifically about the chilling. I never even thought about it until actually I was in Key West, Dave, years ago. And I went to a wine bar and I'm like, God, I would like some red, but it's so hot. And then like, oh, we chill all the wines here. And I thought that was kind of weird, but then I don't know which one, what he had given me. But he like tried to, you know, he's like, try it chilled. It's actually really good. And then that's why when you said it was a summer red, I'm like, let me ask her. But like, it's not like it's cold, like as cold as I'd keep like a Sauv Blanc, but like, you know, it keeps you from, because you know, sometimes red wines can make you hot. And I like that it doesn't, but it still has that red flavor, that good, strong flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. The strong red flavor, but with a little bit of chill. Like when I walk into a restaurant or a wine bar or something, or when I used to, I should say, in the summer, and if it's not like at a cellar temp, and you know, and they don't, like when I lived in San Francisco, there's so many places that don't have air conditioning, and when I would walk in there in the summer and like, you know, it's 8 o'clock at night and you sort of want a red wine and you're like, well, it's like kind of hot in here, you know. Like, it's really hard to drink red wine, like especially if you want a little meat on your bone and it's hot out, you know. But like something like this, like it, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this is gonna be one new favorite for me, because that's one of the reasons I drink white so much in the summer, just because I don't want it, I want it a little chilled.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not gonna ruin the structure of the wine, like at all. Because this wine is generally speaking, Dolcettos are sort of made to drink young. You know, we did Gamay a couple weeks ago, and the same thing. Like, it's just, you know, you can put a slight chill in it, and it's like refreshing. You can have it as a cocktail wine. And but anyway, anyone else dying to share?
We actually chill a lot of wine, you know, and not cold, but you know, if we have a wine fridge that's it's built in here, and it's sort of broken,
Awesome.
so it doesn't get that cold. And it's kind of perfect actually for red wine. It doesn't get cold enough for white, but for red wine, it's actually just kind of perfect if you have something that's been in a box and just kind of sitting around or on the shelf or wherever, and you put it in the wine fridge. It's what, about 60 degrees, something like that?
About 65.
65, like, you know, it's not cold like a refrigerator would be. If you left something for a couple of hours in a refrigerator, it's going to get down to, you know, 40 degrees. But it's really nice just for a red wine. It just sort of takes everything down to where it just sort of levels things out somehow. I don't know. Maybe I'm not describing that correctly.
But I think that was something that I learned when I was staying with you guys, was that, because I just always assumed like you would never put a red in anything chill, you know, like rules that I always had in my head that as I continue to plug into these and learn. But that was one of the things that I was like, oh, okay. The fact that it was kind of a mini fridge, but it wasn't like cold. It wasn't like white cold, you know, like you just said, Dave.
That's just because it's broken, by the way. It's a happy accident.
Like I always say, like,
happy accident fridge, right?
Yeah, like when you go to a winery, you know, all the wineries have a cellar, and most of the cellars are built underground. And the underground, I mean, it's not exposed to humidity. Right. You know, there's no sunlight. It's dark and it's damp. Not damp, but I mean, it's dark and it's chilly. Like anytime, like I go into
wine cellar temperature is way different, or wine temperature, room temperature is different than my house room temperature right now. I still have to have fans on.
Right.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're dealing without hot water right now, which I won't get into. So we have no air. We're not turning the air conditioner on, so like a cold shower feels refreshing. But anyway, and now I'm off a tangent. But yes, red wine absolutely should always have some sort of coolness to it. If you're drinking red wine at like 75, 80 degree temperature, it's really not you're not capturing like anything except heat. I think if when a wine has like a higher alcohol to it and you're drinking it at like a higher temperature, like it's just gonna taste like an alcohol bomb to me. And it's challenging and it's tough for restaurants. I know that because they're limited on space. What the good restaurants that I've worked at that have had that challenge is they take the wines at night and they put them in the refrigerator and they bring them out before service. And that's why they will taste like much better if they don't have the ability to have wine storage. Any questions on wine storage? If you don't have a wine fridge, hide them. Like wine does not like light. And it does not like temperature fluctuations. So I always say, you don't have the ability to invest in a little wine fridge, hide them in your closet. Lay them down and hide them in your closet. You know, don't put them in the garage because the garage is gonna.
I think it was you that said don't put them straight up. They have to be on their side because of the cork.
Yeah.
I think that's how I learned it.
Yeah.
Had one from a store a couple of days ago. The cork cracked, it was dry, and the wine was disgusting. I was like, they store it upright, no more.
Right, exactly. It should be stored. You know, if you're at a turn and burn sort of retailer where, you know, obviously they're always going to have one facing up, and they usually, when you go and if you're picking that one, they're going to take one that's been laying down and they're going to put it back up. So it's always going to be the fresher one, like when you pick it up. But I don't know, some retailers, if they can't move the product and it's been sitting straight up, I've definitely been in some of those places and I'm just like, okay, and you'll always look at the vintage and how long has this been sitting here? Or did you buy this on closeout? You know, sometimes some retailers do some things and they buy things on closeouts, which mean, you know, and who knows what was happening with that wine, you know? So always good to establish a relationship with your retailer, because once you do, they're going to take good care of you. And it seems like, Jenny, for sure, you've got that going on because they keep giving you great wine. Yeah. So where are we talking about next? So I'm going to talk quickly about, if you like your wine, some regions that you should really pay attention to that are only going to deliver a better product. And I will type them out because, you know, it is Italian. So everybody has Alba. I think everyone's drinking one from Alba. I know, pretty sure, yes. So Alba, and typing it out now, Doliani. I'm surprised nobody had one from Doliani. Like, watch Becky come back and she'll be like, that's where mine's from. And Ovada. These are the 3 regions that make the most serious Dolcetto. Doliani is the only region in Piedmont that is planted 100% exclusively to Dolcetto. And it's been upgraded to the DOCG status by the government, which is the highest level that you can get. So that is insane. For those that were on my Barbera call, you remember the term superiore. Raise your hand if you do. Yay! Or cheers. I'll do that. So you can see Dolcetto Superiore on a level, on the label, and that is also a wine that is going to have more finesse. It's going to be one that will age. And so from what I just spoke about, from going from drinking, you know, wine that needs to be drank within 1 to 2 years, these wines on a great vintage can be drank within 10 years, which is like most consumers will never think that about Dolcetto. So if you cut to the slides, I want to share a couple, like, just that is the town of Doliani, which, look at that bustling town, but I mean, this is just country. This is just what I love about Piedmont. But you can see, like, the town of Doliani is in the center, but just the patchwork of the way that the vineyards are laid out, it's just absolutely breathtaking.
You also see like these cliffs over here. It's just like limestone or something.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I was just noticing that it's almost like chalk.
Yes, and that's part of the soil.
Mm-hmm.
Chalk is, and limestone, they call it tufa in Italian, is part of that soil for sure. And it gives the wines that part of the characteristic. You can go to the next slide. That's the actual, like, just a close-up on the town. Which I just think it's so cute. I don't know. I just thought it was like super adorable. Like, it just looks like somewhere that you just want to like run away for like a weekend and, you know.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
We can't. We're banned.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you could real quick go back to the map of Italy, like the very second slide. Where else is this grape grown? Liguria. So for those that, so it's like just underneath, just south of Piedmont, that little sliver, and you can duck out of there and we can go back to smiling with each other. If you remember when we did the Vermentino talk, and I shared all those pictures from Cinque Terre and how they were harvesting the grapes on these like super steep cliff sides, they also grow Dolcetto there. But in Liguria, it's known as Ormiasco. And I haven't done a talk on Armeasco obviously yet, because it's really rare to find, although I love it. And Dave's drank it and he may not have remembered it, because it's like really that rare. Like you really don't see that much of it, but it's beautiful. Like it goes, again, like really well with light pasta dishes. And it's compared to what you have in your glass tonight, which is from Alba, it's going to be even a little bit of a lighter style. And so something you can even put a little bit more chill onto it. And
Sweet?
it's not sweet.
Okay.
Not at all sweet. No.
It's just very hot there, so I thought maybe that was a...
No, not sweet. Not at all sweet. So where else are we growing it? We're growing it here in the United States. Some few producers in California along the Central Coast. Always the Central Coast. Central Coast is the bomb. And Oregon. Some Oregon producers are starting to really come more interested in growing and producing great Dolcetto. Again, rare to find, so I don't want to, spend a lot of time or go into maps and pictures and photos and all that stuff, since it's really just starting to become on board. Australia is another region that has planted Dolcetto. It hasn't really taken off again, but there are some producers that do it. Comparatively speaking to Piedmont, it's going to be just like the Australians. It's going to be more rich and robust, highly aromatic, and I have yet to taste one. I would really like to find one, but I cannot. But let's talk about food pairings. I mean, obviously this makes like a nice, lovely summer red cocktail wine. I'm going to get specific with burgers. I think with Swiss cheese, definitely. I think like this wine deserves a little bit of funk, and Swiss cheese is a little funkier than like if you just put cheddar or provolone or whatever on your burger. Definitely can handle beef burgers, but it can do great with turkey burgers. Sausages, for sure. And we're having chicken sausage tonight. Salumi and charcuterie, all that. And so the noodles of Piedmont, it's like an egg noodle. And you can find it, it's mostly made with, in a truffle sort of sauce, or with mussel or mushrooms, depending on what time you're there. But given the time frame we are now, roasted tomatoes, eggplant, like it's really hard to pair some wines with eggplant. Like I love eggplant. A little tip if you're producing or you're making a dish with eggplant is to, when you slice it, throw some sea salt on it. Let the water sweat out of the eggplant, and it's going to soak up more flavor, and it's going to be less bitter. Because when
my eggplant is blowing up this year.
Oh, good! Oh my God, that's awesome.
I love
eggplant Parmesan. Hello.
Oh, that's yum.
But that's just a really, so when you make it, just put a bunch of sea salt or coarse whatever salt over it. Let that water drain out. You'll be amazed how much water is like inside like an eggplant. It's crazy. And like I said, it'll make it less bitter, and it'll more soak up those flavors of like garlic and pepper and things. And I just like, those are just pairing suggestions I have. Or even pizza with, I mean, it's endless. Like, thank you for the pizza stone, Jimmy. Like,
yeah, I was just going to mention when Jimmy was here, didn't we had Dolcetto with the pizza that we got, right?
I think it was this one we did. This is one of my favorite producers. Yeah.
Or it was the...
That's what I saw on your Instagram. You were in Coronado. I'm like, is he staying with the war?
Yes, he was. I think it was
It's their new Airbnb business that you don't know about yet.
I know. Well, sign me up because it looked fantastic. I'll be there next.
Yeah.
Does
It's an
Fratelli make
amazing
one? I
food
feel
and
like
wine
on the
vacation. I'll let you know that.
Next place will have a pool, which will make it
Yes.
much better.
The next
Yeah.
place is gonna have a pool. That's official.
You delivered me to a pool party, so it's
I
kind
did.
of got that in too.
But we had to drive, and
True. You had to drive. I didn't drive.
true. This beast.
Kidding.
this
Kidding,
beast is
kidding.
Cool.
Kidding. That was fun. So any questions? Anyone want to share anything about what they are enjoying or like a new wine for them, like whatever?
No, I just looked up on Pogo's where I normally go, where the place you recommended. And so I was looking up these. And so as you were mentioning the 3 regions that you put up there above, so I was like, oh, okay, because they have like ratings next to them. And so I'm like, okay, now I know where to get this.
Yep.
And the fact that I love that you're doing this series on, because I prefer to drink reds, but it's hot as all Hades right now in Texas. So the fact that you're giving us these options to not only drink these reds that aren't like tomorrow, I'm driving to West Texas for my grandfather's 90th birthday.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm like, all right, so what do I take out there, as we drive out into, now granted, it's not as humid out there, but it's still going to be 103 to 107, somewhere around that way in Amarillo. So it's helpful that way, those of us that would prefer to drink a red, but don't want to like sweat it out through a cab or something. This series has been great.
Don't put it in the trunk.
Yeah.
Keep it in the cab. Keep it in the
Keep them
cab.
in the
The
cabin.
air conditioning of the inside the car. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it inside the car. Treat it like your kids.
I was just looking up the winery that made my wine, and apparently they make honey too, FYI.
Oh wow, that's cool. They do all kinds of cool stuff like that.
It looks really
there's
good.
my boyfriend.
So that's like really cool because that means they have bees.
Yeah.
Which
But that's the sort of thing that's kind of goes back to what I always am talking about how these guys are just farmers.
Yeah.
They're just farmers, and if you're a farmer, you need pollinators, and bees are a real easy, obvious alternative, and they produce honey. And again, you're a farmer.
I'd like them to
so
send me some of their bees to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we have
I
this
have to
idea
pollinate my squash and cucumbers with a paintbrush because I have no
we do the
bees.
same. We do
We
the
do the
same.
same.
Do you really?
we've been making garden whoopee all season.
Right? That's what I always say. I'm always like doing lewd gestures. I'm like to make myself giggle while I'm doing it because I'm like,
I
I'm
totally
so
do.
grateful that I can grow a lot of vegetables in the city, but
I put
We're
on-
in a gardening group, and one guy posted, he was like, how do you know the difference between a male squash and a female? And I was like, the male looks like a...
Put on a little Luther Vandross on.
I'm like, you got to put the boy into the girl one. That's all you need to know.
So funny. So funny. So next week, continuing on sorry, I just want to wrap this up by saying I'm glad I'm able to find some summer red wines for everybody. Because it's like, you don't want to maybe sit at home and have suffer through oh my gosh, this Syrah is so tense or whatever, or doing a disservice to it by shoving it into the refrigerator and not getting the complexities that you should normally get.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, I want to talk about Muscadet. Who here? Is this a new one?
Yes.
At first, I thought you said Moscato, and I was like, excuse me, no.
Wait, how do you spell that? Now that I'm going to look it up on Pogo so I know how to.
So here's Muscadet is the region, but it's the way the grape, you'll find it. So we're talking France, we're talking the Loire Valley.
So this is white.
Yes, it is a white. So you've noticed I rotate between red and white. You can come to the party, drink whatever you want. But if you're ordering wine from me, if you need one, I will say yes. I have some badass producers. So the grape is not Muscadet, it's the region. And we'll talk about that next week. But it is a perfect, fish crudo. It is something that goes great with oysters, perfect pairing with oysters. These are things that I love to eat in the summer. We all love to eat lighter foods. what is ceviche? Like something that's going to go really, really good with ceviche.
Crab cakes one.
Is there so like
Yes.
again I just put this into Pogos. It only pulled up 3. Is there something specific, region, area, something we're looking for better? Because I feel like every week we come in here and you're like, oh, this is the big region, which means it's a bunch of stuff from every. And here's the specific one. Is there something I should be looking for?
Can you screen share what you're talking about?
I can.
I would go with Domaine de la Pipia.
The middle one.
Yep,
The middle one.
because it's super fresh. Look at the vintages. You see 17 up top.
And so this is something you want to drink young as well.
Yeah, I mean, they can age a bit. Like I'll talk about, I don't want to give away too much information, but I mean,
All right, we're gonna wait for next week, but yes.
exactly. But they can age, but I think, knowing your palate, I know you like crisp, fresh, and it's hot. So
Yeah.
as these wines age, they, some of that super crispness and freshness sort of goes away, and they just take on different styles.
Okay.
So I would go with that middle guy.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love
Yeah.
that that's the least expensive alternative.
I'm about to say,
Yeah,
and it's
right?
I'm about to say, and on a good budget, right? Like,
I wasn't
not
even
that
looking at the
not
price
any
point.
3 are all super pricey, but
Right. Neither
I just
none
went
of them were
directly to the
reflective.
website for our wine shop, and they have that. That's the exact same one that they have. The only one that they have is that one.
Oh, get that then. That would be
Yeah.
fun if you come next week. I'm going to try to find it too.
Oh, I started clearing my schedule a few weeks ago. I was like, look, I'm tired of work rolling everything. I'm prioritizing wine night.
That's awesome.
So that was fun. Really glad that you guys loved Dolcetto, and I was able to expose you to a new grape and something that you can enjoy during the hot temperatures of summer. Next week is Muscadet, and Muscadet is not the grape, but it is the region in the Loire Valley of France. So we'll meet here again next week, and we will talk about this wonderful, wonderful wine that pairs exceptionally well with seafood.